The planet was silent, covered with sharp rocks and dry winds. It was a lonely place where life struggled to exist. In a small broken village, shadows moved like ghosts, and one shadow was crueler than all. The stepmother dragged a small alien girl out of a ruined hut. The girl was thin, weak, her large glowing eyes full of fear. She begged in a soft, trembling voice, but the stepmother's heart was made of stone. The woman looked around to make sure no one was watching, then forced the child down into the dirt. Her hands shoveled earth over the girl's small body, covering her face, her arms, her tiny chest. Soon the child was trapped, only her muffled voice slipping through the cracks of soil. The stepmother whispered cold words. "No one will hear you. No one will come." Then she walked away without looking back, her figure fading into the night wind. The child lay under the dirt, fighting for every breath. Her lungs were too weak, her body too small, but her will to live was strong. She whispered again and again, "Help me, please, help me." Her words were almost broken by soil and air, yet somehow they carried farther than anyone could expect. Far away, on the edge of the barren valley, stood a human mining station. It was a rough place filled with noise of machines and smell of burning fuel. Inside, a young human engineer sat at his console repairing a broken comm unit. His name was not important yet, but his heart was restless. He worked late, hands stained with oil, ears filled with static from the machine. Then it happened. Through the cracked speaker, a sound came. At first it was faint, like a broken signal, just static and noise. But then he froze. A small voice slipped through, weak and trembling. "Help me." He leaned forward, his eyes wide. "Was that real?" he whispered to himself. He adjusted the knobs, tapped the side of the machine, and again a voice came. It was no radio signal. It was no human voice. It was something else. A chill ran through him. Voices did not simply appear from nowhere, not on this planet. And yet the cry was clear, a child crying under the dirt, begging to be saved. He stood, heart beating fast. Part of him said it was just his imagination, the machine playing tricks. But another part, deeper, stronger, told him the truth. Somewhere close, a child was in danger, and if he did nothing, that child would die alone. The young engineer grabbed his light and tools. He left his console behind, ignoring the rules, ignoring the warnings about the valley. He stepped into the dark night where the wind cut like knives. Every step felt heavy. Every shadow looked alive. Still, he followed the sound, his ears searching, his heart guiding. The valley stretched wide, full of black rocks and silent ruins. No voices, no footsteps, only the cold wind. He paused, breathing hard, wondering if he had lost his mind. But then, there it was again, faint but clear. "Please, help me." The sound was so weak it almost broke his heart. It was not static, not an echo. It was real. He ran, stumbling over rocks, his light shaking in his hand. Finally, he reached a patch of disturbed soil. It looked fresh, as if someone had buried something in a hurry. He dropped to his knees, pressing his ear to the ground. The cry came from below, a child's voice, fading, almost gone. He began to dig with his bare hands, throwing dirt aside desperately. His fingers bled, his arms shook, but he did not stop. The earth was cold and heavy, but his heart burned with fire. At last, his hand touched something soft, a small arm, thin and trembling. He dug faster, pulling away more soil until a face appeared, a face not human, but small, delicate, glowing eyes filled with terror and pain. The little alien girl gasped for air as the dirt fell from her mouth and nose. The young man quickly pulled her out, holding her in his arms. Her chest rose and fell weakly, her lungs struggling against the harsh air. He gave her a breath mask from his tool pack, pressing it gently to her face. The girl's breathing steadied a little, though her body was still trembling. She opened her eyes wider, staring at him. Tears rolled down her dirt-covered cheeks. In a broken, fragile voice, she whispered, "Don't leave me." The human froze, his heart twisting at her words. In that moment, he knew this was no trick, no mistake. This was real. He had found her, and now he was the only one standing between her life and death. The night around them grew colder. The shadows seemed to watch. The wind whispered warnings. But he held the little girl close. He did not know who she was or why she had been buried alive. All he knew was this. He had heard her cry, and he had answered. And because of that choice, his life, and hers, would never be the same again. The young human stood in the valley, holding the weak alien child close. Her small body shook in his arms, her glowing eyes half closed. She was alive, but only just. The air was too thin for her, her lungs too weak. Every breath sounded like a whisper of pain. He looked back at the mining station lights in the distance. If he carried her there, people would see, and if they saw, questions would follow. Galactic law was clear. Humans must never interfere in alien family matters. If anyone found out he had saved her, both of them could face punishment. He bit his lip, his heart torn. "Don't leave me," she whispered again, her voice breaking like glass. Those words pierced deeper than any law. How could he walk away now? He shook his head, whispering back, "I won't, little one, I won't." He covered her body with his jacket, shielding her from the biting wind. Then he began to walk, carefully, quietly. He avoided the main path, choosing the long, dark way through the rocks. Every sound made him turn his head, every crunch of stone, every whistle of air. He feared the stepmother might return, feared someone might be watching. As he carried her, his mind raced. Why would someone bury a child alive? What kind of cruelty was this? And yet, the girl was not human. Her people had their own ways, their own secrets. Maybe he was stepping into something far more dangerous than he understood, but still his arms did not let go. When he reached the edge of the station, he stopped. The gates were guarded. Security drones floated near the walls. If they scanned the girl, it was over. He crouched behind a pile of scrap, thinking fast. Then he remembered the old cargo shaft that had been closed for years, a tunnel no one used anymore. It was dangerous, but it was his only choice. He slipped inside, the tunnel walls damp with rust, the floor scattered with broken wires. His light flickered, shadows dancing across the walls like hungry creatures. The girl's breathing slowed, her head resting weakly on his shoulder. He whispered to her softly, "Stay awake, little one. Stay with me." But she was drifting, her voice fading. He hurried, almost running, until at last he reached his small living quarters deep inside the station, a forgotten corner where no one cared to look. He laid her down on his bunk, pulling the oxygen mask tighter around her face. Her chest rose and fell, fragile but steady now. For the first time, he allowed himself to breathe. He sat beside her, staring. Her skin glowed faintly under the dim light. Her hair shimmered like threads of silver. She looked so different, so alien, and yet so innocent. No child deserved the fate she had been given. As he sat, she stirred, opening her eyes again. "Why did you help me?" she asked softly. Her words were shaky but clear. He hesitated, then answered, "Because no one else would." Tears touched her glowing eyes and she whispered, "My stepmother. She wanted me gone." The words chilled him. He leaned closer, asking gently, "Why? You're just a child." The girl's lips trembled. "My father is gone. He left everything to me, but she wants it all." Her voice cracked, and she turned away, ashamed of her own truth. The young man clenched his fists, anger boiling inside. So it was greed, simple and cruel, a child buried alive just so someone could hold power. He shook his head, disgust twisting in his chest. But then fear followed. If the stepmother had power, she would come searching. And when she did, the girl would never be safe, not even here. He looked at the girl, small and fragile on his bed. His mind shouted warnings. Walk away, hide, obey the law. But his heart answered louder. Protect her, no matter what. That choice was not easy, but it was clear. Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed outside his door. He froze, listening. Voices, mechanical whirs, security drones moving through the hallway. Had they tracked him? Had someone seen? He quickly dimmed the lights, pulling a blanket over the girl. He stood near the door, silent, his heart pounding like a drum. The shadows outside shifted. Red scanning lights passed through the cracks. He held his breath, every muscle tight. The girl gripped his hand under the blanket, her tiny fingers cold. The drones hummed, hovered, then moved away. The silence returned, heavy and deep. He exhaled slowly, sinking onto the chair. For now they were safe, but he knew it would not last. The stepmother would not give up easily, and the law would not protect him. He turned back to the girl, who was still watching him with those glowing eyes. "I will keep you safe," he said quietly, almost to himself. The girl nodded, whispering, "You're my only hope." The young human sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling. His life had changed in one night. He had made a choice that broke the law, a choice too. Had put him in danger, but it was the only choice his heart could make. And in the silence of that hidden room, he understood something. This was only the beginning. The real danger had not yet arrived. And when it came, he would have to stand against more than one cruel stepmother. He would have to stand against the law of the galaxy itself. The small room was quiet, hidden in the old tunnels of the station. The young human sat on the floor beside his bunk, staring at the child he had saved. She was sleeping, her thin chest rising and falling slowly. Her skin glowed faintly in the dark, as if tiny stars lived beneath her surface. Every breath she took sounded fragile, but she was alive, and that was enough, for now. He leaned closer, adjusting the oxygen mask on her face. Her eyes moved beneath her lids as if she dreamed of something far away. Her hands twitched, clutching the blanket. She looked both strange and familiar, alien yet innocent. He whispered softly, though she could not hear. "Who are you, little one?" Hours passed before she finally stirred. Her glowing eyes opened, wide and full of fear at first. But when they met his, the fear faded a little. Her voice was weak but clear. "You saved me." He nodded slowly, unsure what to say. Her words carried a weight far heavier than her small body. He offered her a drink of water, holding the cup carefully to her lips. She drank, coughing softly, then leaned back. "Thank you," she whispered. The sound of her voice filled the room with something warm. He could not explain it, but it touched him deeper than anything he had felt in years. The girl sat up slowly, her eyes wandering across the room. Her gaze stopped on the tools and scraps scattered around. "Where am I?" she asked. "You're safe," he said quickly. "This is my place. No one will find you here." She lowered her eyes, hugging the blanket. "I should not be alive," she said, her voice trembling. The young human frowned, leaning closer. "Why do you say that?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Because she wanted me gone." Her stepmother. The word sent a chill through him again. He clenched his fists, anger burning inside, but he kept his voice gentle. "Tell me, if you can." Her lips trembled as she spoke. "My father was kind, he ruled with mercy, but he is gone now. Before he died, he left everything to me. But I am small, I am weak. She wanted the power, she wanted the title, so she buried me in the dirt, so no one would ever hear me again." The human's heart twisted at her words. A child left under soil, betrayed by her own family. He shook his head, whispering, "That is not right." She looked at him with those glowing eyes shining even brighter with tears. "Why did you hear me? Why did you come?" she asked. He paused, searching for an answer. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I couldn't ignore your voice. I just couldn't." She stared at him, and for a moment silence filled the room. Then she reached out with her small hand, touching his arm. "Don't leave me," she whispered again, the same words that had pulled him into the valley, the same words that had changed everything. He nodded firmly. "I won't. Not ever." For the first time, a small smile touched her lips. It was faint, weak but real. The human felt something shift inside him. She was no longer just an alien child, no longer just a voice in the dirt. She was someone who trusted him, someone who saw him as her only hope, and he could not betray that trust. He spent the night watching over her. Every time she coughed, he adjusted the oxygen. Every time she stirred, he whispered calming words. He was exhausted, but he refused to sleep. The girl had almost been lost once. He would not let it happen again. When morning came, faint light crept through the cracks of the tunnel wall. The girl sat up slowly, her hair catching the glow, shimmering like silver threads. She looked stronger now, though still fragile. The human handed her a piece of food, and she nibbled carefully. Her voice was a little stronger as she asked, "What is your name?" He smiled faintly. "Call me what you like, names don't matter here." She tilted her head, then whispered, "Then I will call you Protector." The word hit him like a hammer. Protector. It was more than a name. It was a promise. He looked at her and nodded. "Protector, then." The girl gave another small smile, though her eyes still held shadows of pain. But as the warmth of their moment grew, a sudden noise broke it, a faint hum echoing through the tunnels. The human froze, listening. It was the sound of drones, searching, scanning. The girl's smile vanished, fear filling her eyes once more. "They are looking for me," she whispered. The human grabbed his tools, his mind racing. If the drones found her, it was over. He looked at her, small but glowing with hidden strength, and he made a silent vow in his heart. No matter what came, he would protect her, even if it meant standing against the entire galaxy. The girl was revealed, her story told, her life hanging in the balance, and as danger closed in, the human knew the truth. This was not just a rescue, it was the beginning of something far greater, a bond, a fight, a secret that could shake the stars themselves. The tunnels were dark and silent, but silence was not safety. The young human listened carefully, his ears alert for the distant hum of drones. They had passed earlier, scanning for movement, searching for someone or something. He knew exactly who they hunted. The small alien girl sat on his bunk, clutching the blanket, her glowing eyes wide with fear. Her breath was steadier now, but her heart carried a weight no child should bear. The human crouched in front of her, speaking softly. "They will not find you here," he said, though even he was not sure. She lowered her gaze, her voice trembling. "They will not stop. She will not stop." He frowned. "Your stepmother." The girl nodded, her fingers tightening around the blanket. "She is powerful. She controls many. Her word is law among my people." The human sat back, trying to understand. How could she do this to her own child, he asked, more to himself than to her. The girl's eyes filled with tears, glowing like liquid light. She does not see me as her child, she whispered. She sees me as a wall in her path. The words cut deep. The human felt anger stir inside him, anger at cruelty he could not comprehend. The girl's voice grew softer, almost a confession. My father trusted her. He believed she cared for me, but he was blind. Before he died, he left everything to me, his house, his land, his title. He said I was the true heir, and that one day I would lead with kindness, but she wanted it all. She wanted power, and I was in the way. The human clenched his fists, a child betrayed for greed, for control. He shook his head, whispering, "That is not right. No one deserves that." The girl looked at him, her glowing eyes meeting his. It does not matter what is right. The law is on her side. Her words made him freeze. The galactic law. He had always known about it, spoken in whispers among miners and workers. Humans were not allowed to interfere in alien family matters. The punishment was severe: exile, prison, even death. If anyone discovered she was with him, he would be branded a criminal. He swallowed hard, the truth pressing down on him like iron. Yet when he looked at her, small and fragile, her trust placed entirely in him, the fear faded. He had already made his choice, and there was no turning back. He reached out, gently taking her hand. "I do not care about their law," he said firmly. "You are not alone now." Her lips trembled, then slowly curved into the smallest smile. It was a smile mixed with sadness, but it carried hope too. She leaned closer, whispering, "You will be hunted for this, you know. She will send more than drones. She will send men, soldiers, assassins. She will not stop until I am gone." The human nodded, his eyes steady. "Then let her come. We will not make it easy for her." The girl tilted her head, studying him. "You are strange," she said softly. "Most humans would turn away, afraid of the law, afraid of her power. But you stay." He chuckled quietly, though his eyes were serious. "Maybe I am foolish, maybe I am reckless, but when I heard your voice, I could not ignore it. And now that I see you, I know why. Because you deserve a chance to live." Her eyes shone brighter, filled with both gratitude and sorrow. "You sound like my father," she whispered. He also said those words once, before she silenced him. The human stiffened, his breath catching. Her father silenced, not by sickness, not by fate, but by her, the stepmother. His anger flared hotter than before, but he kept his voice calm. "Then your father was a wise man, and we will honor his words together." The girl nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. She wiped them away with trembling fingers, whispering, "I am not strong. I am not like him." The human shook his head. "Strength is not always in the body. Sometimes it is in the heart, and you are stronger than you believe." The girl stared at him, her expression softening. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe it might be true. But outside the walls of their small hideout, the danger grew. The hum of drones returned, louder this time, their lights sweeping across the tunnels. The human stood quickly, his muscles tense. "They are close," he whispered. The girl gripped the blanket, fear flashing in her glowing eyes. "What will we do?" she asked, her voice breaking. He looked at her firmly, determination burning in his gaze. "We survive," he said simply, "no matter what." The drones passed again, but he knew it was only the beginning. The stepmother would not rest, and now he understood the full weight of the secret he carried. This was no ordinary child. This was the true heir of a powerful line, a living threat to a cruel woman's rule, and by saving her, he had placed himself at the center of a storm. Still, when he looked back at her, small but unbroken, his resolve hardened. He would not give her up, no matter what the law said, no matter what enemies came, for in the darkness of the galaxy, one choice could change everything, and he had chosen to protect her. The secrets of the stepmother were now uncovered, and with them came a new truth. This fight was no longer just about survival, it was about justice, and the war for that justice was only beginning. The night on the mining station was never quiet. Engines roared, drills screamed, and sparks rained down from machines. But beneath that noise, something darker moved. The hum of alien drones swept across the outer walls, their red lights cutting through the shadows. They were not here for repairs. They were not here for trade. They were here for a child. The young human stood in the old tunnel, his ears sharp, his hand gripping a metal bar he had turned into a weapon. Beside him, the alien girl sat silently, her glowing eyes fixed on the flicker of light outside the door. "They are searching again," she whispered, her voice thin. He nodded, his jaw tight. "Yes, and they are getting closer each time." She hugged the blanket tighter, her body trembling. "She will not stop, I told you," she said. "She wants me gone, and she will burn the world until I am ashes." The human's face hardened. "Then we will not let her win," he replied, his voice steady, though his heart raced. The drones passed slowly, their sensors humming. For a moment, one stopped near the tunnel, its light floss. Hing across the wall, the girl's breath caught, her small hand clutching his arm. He held her close, whispering, "Stay still, don't make a sound." The red light scanned back and forth, then faded as the drone moved on. They both exhaled, relief heavy in their chests, but he knew this could not last. The stepmother had power, wealth, and soldiers. Soon it would not only be drones, it would be hunters, flesh and blood killers who would search every corner until they found her. He looked at the girl and felt the weight of that truth. "We cannot hide here forever," he said. "We must move. We must stay ahead of them." The girl nodded slowly, fear still in her glowing eyes, but trust too. "Where can we go?" she asked. The human thought hard, his mind racing. The station was full of tunnels, abandoned shafts, and broken cargo bays. If he used his knowledge of the mining routes, he could keep them hidden. He leaned closer, whispering, "I know a place where no one dares to go. Deep under the old shafts, we will be safe there, at least for a while." So their journey began. Through rusted ladders and cracked tunnels, he carried her when her weak lungs could not keep up. He guided her through darkness, the only light coming from his flickering lamp and her faintly glowing skin. Every sound made his heart jump. Every shadow looked like a hunter waiting, but he did not stop, not once. Along the way, the girl began to show something strange. She would pause suddenly, whispering, "Not that way, danger ahead." And when he listened, he found she was right. Once they avoided a shaft just before a patrol of drones passed through. Another time, she tugged his hand, whispering, "Hide." Seconds before, voices echoed through the tunnel. The human began to realize her senses were sharper than he imagined. Perhaps there was more to her than just fragility. They finally reached the old shaft. A wide hollow space deep underground. The walls dripped with water, and broken machines lay scattered like bones. No one came here anymore. It was too unstable, too dangerous. But for them, it was perfect. The human set down his pack, giving the girl some food and adjusting her oxygen mask. "We will rest here tonight," he said. She nodded, curling up against the wall, exhaustion heavy in her small frame. As she drifted into sleep, the human sat awake, his weapon across his knees. His thoughts were heavy. He had chosen to protect her, but with each passing hour, the danger grew. The stepmother was not just cruel, she was powerful. And now he carried her enemy's heir, the one thing she wanted erased. He stared into the dark, whispering to himself, "What have I gotten into?" But then he looked at the girl sleeping peacefully, and he knew the answer. He had gotten into something worth fighting for. The next day, his fears became real. As they moved through another tunnel, they heard heavy boots, voices speaking in harsh alien tongues. Not drones, hunters. The girl's hand tightened around his, her glowing eyes wide with fear. "They are here," she whispered. The human pulled her into a side passage, crouching low. Through the cracks, he saw them, tall figures in dark armor, carrying weapons that gleamed in the dim light. They scanned the walls, speaking into their comms. "The signal is close. She is near." The human's heart pounded. If they found her, there would be no mercy. He held her close, whispering softly, "Stay silent, stay strong." The hunters passed slowly, their eyes glowing red behind their helmets. One paused, sniffing the air as if sensing something. The human gripped his metal bar, ready to strike if needed. But at last, the hunter moved on, their footsteps fading into the distance. The human let out a long breath, his arms still shaking. The girl whispered, "They will come again, stronger, more." He nodded grimly. "Yes, and we will be ready." Her glowing eyes searched his face, and she whispered, "Why do you risk this? Why do you risk yourself for me?" He met her gaze, his voice quiet but firm. "Because you deserve to live, because your voice called to me, and I will not let it be silenced." The girl's lips curved into a faint smile, though her eyes still glistened with tears. For the first time, she began to believe they might truly escape. But in the shadows of the tunnels, the hunters spread wider, their voices echoing, their machines scanning. The hunt had only just begun, and both of them knew the worst was still to come. The tunnels shook with echoes of heavy boots. The sound was no longer distant, no longer a passing patrol. It was a march, a full force. The human knew at once. The stepmother had come herself. He pressed the girl behind a pile of broken machines, her glowing eyes wide with fear, her hands trembling. "She is here," she whispered, her voice cracking. He nodded, gripping the metal bar tighter. "Yes, and she has brought her army." The air grew colder, heavier, as shadows stretched long across the walls. The hunters entered, their armor black as stone, their weapons humming with energy, and behind them walked a tall figure wrapped in silver and black robes, her face sharp, her eyes burning with cruel fire. The stepmother, her voice filled the tunnel like poison. "My dear child," she called, her words smooth but sharp. "Did you think you could hide from me?" The girl buried her face against the human's shoulder, whispering, "Don't let her take me." The human's chest tightened, but he whispered back, "I won't. Not while I breathe." The stepmother's eyes scanned the shadows, her hunters fanning out. "You cannot keep her," she said coldly. "The law is on my side. The galaxy is on my side. Give her to me, human, and you may yet walk away alive." Her words were sweet with venom. The human stepped out slowly, his weapon in hand, his heart pounded, but his voice was steady. "No," he said simply. Her eyes narrowed, her face twisting with disdain. "You dare stand against me," she hissed. "You are nothing, a minor, a speck of dust. This child belongs to me, her fate belongs to me." The human's grip tightened on the bar. "She belongs to no one," he said. "She deserves to live, and I will not let you bury her again." The hunters raised their weapons, the hum filling the air like thunder. The stepmother raised her hand, ready to give the order. "Kill him," she whispered, her voice like ice. The human braced himself. He knew he could not win against so many, but he would fight, even if it meant his last breath. He raised the bar, his muscles tight, his eyes burning with defiance. Then, before the hunters could fire, a sound ripped through the tunnel. It was not a scream, not a cry, but a voice. The girl's voice. She had stepped out from the shadows, her small frame trembling, but her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "Stop!" she cried. The sound shook the air, a wave of energy bursting outward. The hunters staggered, their weapons sparking, machines crashing to the floor. The tunnel walls vibrated, dust raining down from above. The stepmother's eyes widened in shock, her robe whipping in the force of the wave. "What have you done?" she spat. The girl's voice grew louder, stronger, filled with something ancient, something powerful. "I am not yours," she shouted. "I will never be yours." The hunters collapsed one by one, their armor sparking, their calm shattering in their helmets. The human shielded his eyes from the light, but he did not back away. He watched as the small child stood tall, her voice a storm breaking the silence. Her power had been hidden, buried deep, but now it was free. The stepmother staggered, her eyes full of fury and fear. "You think this changes anything?" she screamed. "You are weak. You will always be weak. No matter what power you hold, you are still a child, and children are meant to be silent." But the girl's eyes burned brighter. She stepped closer, her voice stealing. "Die now, filled with strength." "No," she said. "Children are meant to live, meant to breathe, meant to be loved." Her words struck harder than any weapon. The stepmother snarled, raising a blade from beneath her robe. She rushed forward, the weapon glowing with cruel light. The human moved at once, stepping between them, his metal bar clashing with her blade. The sound rang out, sparks flying. He pushed with all his strength, holding her back. "You will not touch her," he growled. The stepmother laughed coldly, pressing harder. "You cannot stop me," she hissed. Her blade cut across his arm, blood dripping, but he did not let go. Behind him, the girl's voice rose again, trembling but strong. "Protector," she called. "Move!" He dropped to the side just as her voice unleashed another wave. The tunnel exploded with light, throwing the stepmother backward. She crashed against the wall, her blade shattering, her robes torn. She screamed with fury, her eyes wild. "This is not over," she spat, before vanishing into the shadows with the few hunters still standing. Silence fell, broken only by the human's ragged breathing. He dropped his weapon, clutching his bleeding arm. The girl ran to him, her glowing eyes filled with tears. "You are hurt," she whispered. He shook his head, smiling faintly. "I'm alive. That's enough." She wrapped her small arms around him, trembling. "You protected me, even against her," she said. He held her close, whispering, "And I always will." The tunnel was quiet again, the hunters gone. The stepmother fled, but both of them knew this was not the end. It was only a pause, a breath before the storm returned. The girl had revealed her hidden power, the stepmother had seen it, now the galaxy itself would soon know. Yet in that moment, as they held each other in the dark, they were not defeated. They had stood against cruelty and lived, and in their bond lay something stronger than law, stronger than fear, hope. The last stand was not the end, it was the beginning of something far greater. The tunnel lay silent after the battle. Smoke drifted from broken machines. Dust floated in the cold air. The hunters were gone. The stepmother had fled, but the echoes of her threats still lingered. The young human leaned against the wall, his arm bleeding, his breath heavy. Beside him, the alien girl stood with glowing eyes, her small frame trembling from the power she had unleashed. For a moment, neither spoke. They were alive, but they both knew survival here would not last. The stepmother had seen the girl's power. She would not stop now. She would return with greater force, and the law itself would soon turn against them. The girl touched his wounded arm gently, her fingers light as feathers. "You are hurt because of me," she whispered. He shook his head, giving her a faint smile. "I would rather bleed than see you buried again," he said. Her eyes filled with tears, but they did not fall. Instead, she whispered, "Then we must go before she comes back." He nodded, pushing himself to his feet. "You're right," he said, his voice steady despite the pain. "There is nothing left for us here. Not in these tunnels, not on this station." He looked toward the upper shafts where faint light shone through cracks. "If we stay, the law will find us, or worse, she will." The girl stepped closer, her small hand sliding into his. "Where will we go?" she asked softly. He looked at her and smiled, though his heart was heavy. "Anywhere," he said. "Everywhere. The galaxy is wide, and as long as we keep moving, no one can cage us." They began their journey upward, climbing through old shafts and broken ladders. Every step was heavy, but hope pushed them forward. The girl's strength returned slowly, though she still leaned on him often, and though her power had saved them, she was afraid of it. "What if I cannot control it?" she whispered one night, as they rested in a dark corridor. The human squeezed her hand. "Then we learn together," he said. "You are not alone anymore. Not ever." At last they reached the surface level of the station. The roar of ships filled the air, engines shaking the ground. Workers moved about, unaware of the danger hidden in the shadows. The human pulled the girl close, leading her through the chaos. Every drone above made their hearts race. Every voice of a guard felt like a threat. But they pressed on, silent, careful, determined. Their destination was an old hangar on the edge of the station. Few ships were left there, only scraps and forgotten vessels. But the human knew one thing. Among those scraps was a small ship, broken but not useless. "I can fix it," he whispered to her, his eyes scanning the rusted hulls. "It won't be fast, it won't be pretty, but it will fly." The girl's glowing eyes brightened with hope. "If it flies, it is enough," she whispered. They worked quickly, the human using every skill he had as an engineer. He patched the engine, rewired the power cells, and forced the old ship awake. The girl sat nearby, watching, handing him tools when he asked. At one point she whispered, "My father used to build things too. He said every creation was a promise of tomorrow." The human looked at her, smiling faintly. "Then this ship is our tomorrow," he said. The engines roared at last, loud but alive. The floor shook beneath them, and the ship's lights flickered on. The girl's eyes widened, her lips curving into a smile. "It works," she said softly, almost in disbelief. He nodded, pulling her hand. "Then let's leave before anyone notices." They climbed aboard, the ship's interior cold and dusty. The human strapped her into a seat, adjusting the belts carefully. "Hold on tight," he said with a grin, though his own hands trembled. The girl nodded, gripping the straps, her glowing eyes never leaving him. The hangar doors creaked open, the night sky stretching beyond. Stars glimmered far away, calling them. He pushed the controls, the ship groaning as it lifted. Guards shouted in the distance. Drones turned their red eyes toward the hangar, but it was too late. The ship roared forward, leaving the station behind. As they broke through the clouds, the girl pressed her face to the window. She gasped softly, seeing the endless stars. "I've never been this far," she whispered. The human looked at her and smiled. "Then remember this moment, little one. This is freedom." Silence filled the ship except for the hum of the engine. The girl leaned against him, her glowing eyes soft with trust. "You are my family now," she whispered. His heart ached at her words, but he held her close. "And you are mine," he said. The galaxy stretched before them, wide and full of danger. The stepmother would not stop, the law would not forgive. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the choice he had made, to hear a voice no one else would hear, to dig through the dirt, to save a life that others had thrown away. That choice had changed everything, and as the stars opened like a path of fire, he knew their story was only beginning. The little alien girl, once buried and forgotten, was now alive and free. The human, once just a minor, was now her protector, her family. Together, they carried hope into the endless dark. Together, they would face whatever the galaxy sent. Together, they would write a new beginning.